They were very obedient. When he told them to stay or sit, they remained that way until he called them. My family was poor in those days. A dog was a luxury we didn't have. And being sniffed at by a pair of attack-trained Dobermans was a little unnerving. Still, it was a memorable experience for a poor guy to have lunch in a gangster's mansion. He knew that we were poor during the Depression, but he never offered me a job or gave me handout. However, he did give me tips on fixed horse races and boxing matches. He would tell me to bet $75 on a Jack Sharkey or Primo Carnera match, and I would walk away with $750. That was a lot during the Depression. Unfortunately, he didn't give me more than 4 or 5 tips a year. While it was nice to get these relatively small windfalls, it wasn't enough to live on, so we remained poor right up to the outset of World War II. That's when my dad won a garment factory in a poker game. One thing I learned from Irv and my dad was never bet on anything unless you know the outcome. Only bet on a sure thing. Gambling is a sucker's game. Betting on a fixed fight was never a gamble. My curiosity about fixed fights was ignited that day. I asked my father how many fights were fixed, and he replied, "More than the public realizes. You know, all you have to do is pay off one fighter and tell him to bet that money on his opponent, and he will clean up. It is especially appealing to washed-up boxers, guys on their way down, and to guys who are second-raters, guys who know they'll never fight their way to the top of the pyramid. You know boxers have no unions, no pensions, and many of their managers steal their money. So if a guy is smart, he'll take the money and move on. It's better to have money in the bank than mush in your head." I didn't have any further inside knowledge about fixed fights until the 1980s, when I was doing publicity for the Olympic gold medal boxer Howard Davis, a welterweight. I got to know a fight promoter and asked him about fixed fights. He assured me that none of Davis's fights were fixed, and I believed him, especially after watching Davis in the ring. The promoter said, "Sometimes it's easier to fix the referee rather than the fighter. A referee can separate fighters before a knockout punch is coming. He can separate fighters when one of them is an inside fighter. He can call a foul on one fighter and not another. He can pull them apart when his guy looks like he's taking too many punches. He can begin a knockdown count late. There are many things a referee can do to affect the outcome. And for insurance, you can also fix one of the judges. Look at how many people argued for years about the long count in the Tunney-Dempsey fight. Was it fixed? Was it on the level? I think it was fixed. You know the referee wouldn't start counting until Dempsey went to a neutral corner. When Tunney knocked down Dempsey, even though Tunney didn't go to neutral corner, the referee started counting right away. That was an obvious one. The ref favored Tunney. But as bad as it wasn't as obvious as Jake LaMotta giving it away to Billy Fox. Some guys are no good at faking a loss, and some of them are not believable when winning a fixed fight. Just look at Primo Carnera. He couldn't punch. He was awkward, pushed his opponents away. Yet he won enough fixed fights to become the world champion, and the poor guy had all his money stolen from him. He walked away broke. The same thing happened to Blackjack Billy Fox and others. Because boxing matches are so easy to fix, the sport has always attracted mobsters, professional gamblers, and con artists. They have existed in the shadows of boxing for as long as people have bet on the sport. In the 1880s and 1890s, there were fight stores in various cities and towns throughout the United States. New York and Chicago had the largest concentration of such stores. In his book, The Big Con, The Story of the Confidence Man, David Maurer writes, "The fight store swindle worked briefly like this. The mob consisted of one or more ropers, the person who brought in the sucker to be swindled, an inside man, a doctor, 2 prize fighters, and several minor assistants. The roper traveled about the countryside, usually not far from the store, and steered a mark-in whenever he could find one. He posed as a disgruntled secretary to a millionaire sportsman, often a railroad executive, who ostensibly traveled about the country in a private railroad car with a prize fighter, his personal doctor, a trainer, and staff of servants. In order to indulge his sporting instincts,